Hey, Ilsa here. Welcome back. Today we're doing part 6 of resetting your nervous system for receivership and activating the frequency of overflow in your body. So today we're diving into who you need to be and who you need to embody to be able to hold the life, the business, and the results that you desire. For an acorn to become an oak, it has to be willing to give up being an acorn. What I want to impart to you in today's training is that the massive oak already lives in the acorn. You are coded for growth, for abundance. The bigness, the potential, the infinite level of possibilities that is available to you is already living inside you. You don't have to become somebody you're not. You literally have to awaken to who you actually are. So we're almost coming back a little bit to part 1, where we're talking about our innate wholeness and reclaiming that fierceness, that sense of freedom and sense of infinite possibilities that was alive within us as a child. Like if you imagine a child completely fearless and without any sense that what they want is not possible for them, like completely anchored in life being their playground and them being able to do anything they want. If you think of that child growing up without conditioning, without wounding, without betrayal, without any sense of not being wanted, not being good enough, not being lovable. So you imagine like an actually perfect childhood. And this child got to grow up and continue to evolve and become an adult without ever losing that sense of freedom and that sense of infinite possibility, that sense of wholeness and feeling capable and perfect the way they are. That would be our divine design. That would be what we are essentially coded for. And so in many ways, what we do through this work of nervous system expansion, recalibration at a somatic level, is that we meet the acorn inside us. We fall in love with it. We provided all the missing experience that it has lacked so that it can reclaim its innate coding of being an oak that is already inside. So when you liberate all these wounded parts inside you and you start to uncover a version of you that is already free, already whole, already worthy, already wealthy, then the world becomes your oyster. The world becomes your playground. Then all the stuff that's in the way, which is really you, starts to fall away. When we uncover that version of us that is sovereign, that is free, we start to realize that the reason we've struggled so much, both internally and externally, or why things have felt hard, is because a wounded small part of us was actually running the show. We had a limited self running our life and our business instead of that expanded sovereign part of us. Essentially, we realized that we've been like a 4-year-old trying to walk in our mother's high heels, struggling to look and feel easeful doing it, twisting ankles, falling on our face, getting frustrated at our lack of grace and speed. And that the reason is not that there's anything wrong with us or there's anything wrong with the shoes. The reason is simply that our feet aren't big enough to fill the shoes. And so a lot of this work is us releasing the child, releasing the acorn, and realizing that we are the oak, so we can start to fill the shoes and we can start to walk and move with an innate sense of grace. So through this nervous system expansion work and through the calibration process, we start to shift our identity out of contraction, out of limitation, and we start to anchor ourselves in the life that we desire, in the future that is possible for us, rather than what has been. And a big part of that is really meeting, and I'll talk more about this in the next part of this training, which is all about radical trust. But a big part of this work is actually turning towards your pain, towards your conditioning, towards your woundedness, towards the parts of you the part of you that is struggling. And you do that, you turn towards yourself with the intention of bringing permission, of bringing validation, of bringing a sense of peace, support, relief, and bringing that missing experience that this part needs to start to release the contraction and starts to blossom, starts to come into openness, relaxation, liberation. You start to teach everything within you that has ever felt small or been taught to feel small, has ever been conditioned to feel not enough, to feel unwanted. You start to teach all these little parts of you that they are actually always already whole, that they are worthy, that they are magnificent and powerful beyond measure. When you do that, you automatically start to take your seat in sovereignty and in expansion. You start to align yourself and anchor yourself into that part of you that is already whole, already free, and that moves through the world fearlessly. And so it's interesting for me that it is in really meeting the limitation, that the contraction, that we move and we arrive into expansion and limitlessness. If you've watched my videos for a while, you've heard me say this. One of my favorite lessons saying is contraction is not the absence of expansion. It is the request for expansion. What you have to understand is that every acorn within you knows at a subtle unconscious level that it is an oak and has a deep, deep longing to know itself as an oak. And so when you are in contraction, contraction is not the denial of being powerful and big and fierce. The contraction itself is the request for help. It's some small part of you that is saying, help me, help me. I know I am limitless, and yet I feel limited. Help me reclaim my limitlessness. Help me remember my worth, my wholeness, my magnificence, my power. I know I am powerful at some level, but I feel small and I feel scared and I feel stuck. Help me reclaim the truth of my nature, that I am powerful and magnificent and whole and free already. So whenever you feel contraction, it's an invitation. It's literally a part of you asking for support and asking for you to turn towards yourself, towards it, so that you can reclaim that sovereign identity so that you can remember who you are, the truth of who you are. Now, here's something powerful. And this is something I usually don't go into in these videos because it's a little philosophical, but I talk to my clients, especially in one-on-ones, quite a lot about this. When you feel something inside you that is afraid, that feels stuck, that feels small, not enough, limited, you feel a contraction, and you actually turn towards yourself with love, with kindness, with a willingness to offer the missing experience so that this part of you can remember that this is not the truth. This limitation, this sadness, this fear is not the truth. The sense of unworthiness is not the truth. The part of you that actually turns towards you, that is already your soul. That is already your sovereign part. That is already your bigger self. It's always already here, but most of us always merge our identity with contraction rather than expansion. Everything always emerges whole. If you feel a contraction, if a contraction exists within you, an expansion, a part of you that is whole and already free also lives within you. But for most of us, we are conditioned, we are taught, we are wired from an evolutionary perspective to only focus on the contraction, on the conditioning. We are not wired to focus and to notice the bigness that is already here. And so these practices, in many ways, and that's why I call them almost like a remembrance practice, because you're not becoming someone you're not. You're actually teaching yourself to shift away where you put your center. You're teaching yourself to not only heal the parts of you that have been wounded, but you're also teaching yourself at the same time to start to anchor your sense of beingness in the part of you that has never been wounded, that has never been conditioned, that has never forgotten that it is an oak and lives and moves as an oak. And so when you do that enough time, you turn towards yourself, you offer that missing experience. And as you offer that missing experience, you realize that the one who's turning doesn't need a missing experience. It is already whole. You do that enough time, at some point, that sovereign, free, fearless part of you starts to feel more real, more you than any contraction, than any wounded part of you. And you begin to see that all that woundedness, all that conditioning was actually a really powerful, well-designed illusion, a mirage, an illusion of limitation. Not true, not you. So when we're talking about really rewiring our identity, we are talking about shifting your point of center. We're talking about shifting who you be and how you move and anchor yourself in the world. When you do that, you have entered what I call sacred groundedness. Nothing can shake you. You feel like you belong and you are safe anywhere and in every circumstance. And you feel so deeply regulated, so deeply relaxed, so deeply resourced and resilient that money has no other option but to chase you and to catch up with you. You're not even trying to create money to feel whole. You feel so whole that money wants to be with you in some ways. And that, for me, is literally the definition of wealth. Wealth in all its ways. Yes, it includes physical and financial abundance, but it is actually an abundance that comes from within. Like you are so anchored in your own sense of relaxation and sense of wholeness and sense of sovereignty and expansion that people want to be with you. They want to be around you. They want to catch what you got. They want who you're being for themselves. And that's when opportunities come forward. That's when client don't bat an eyelash at paying you what you want. That's when your soulmate shows up. That's when you get the promotion, you get the raises, you get the new contracts, you get job offers. Because people can sense that lighthouse within you, that sense of leadership, because you are self-led. And because you are self-led, you become like that lighthouse. Like they're in a storm, they're in the dark in some ways, and you're shining, you're steadfast, you're still, you're grounded, and you're shining. And they want that as well. They want to become and remember for themselves what you have reclaimed. And being in your presence literally becomes a healing balm at that point. So I want to give you a journaling prompt to help you kind of start to play with this idea. If you gave yourself permission to embody and be the most whole, the most expansive, the most sovereign version of you, a version of you that was never hurt by the world, never wounded, never conditioned, never made to shrink. If you gave yourself permission to be that free, that whole, that sovereign, what would become possible for you in your life, in your business, in your wealth? That's the first part. Like if you really started to reclaim and give yourself permission to be him or her now, and to not believe in conditioning and limitation. Start to just get a taste, like in your mind, but also in your body. What would that feel like? How would this version of me move? What would she dare to do? What would he dare to go after? Just what would they no longer tolerate? Just start to play with who that would be. And then as you're playing with who that would be, choose one quality that you can sense in that and start to cultivate that quality within you, that way of being within you now. This way you can start to slowly shift that point of center of your own being. And you can start to slowly remember that you are an oak. You've always been an oak. That the oak was always in the acorn. And the point of the acorn. So this is part 6. In part 7, we are diving into the power of radical trust. And that's going to be a real nice way to close out this series. And I'm gonna show you how radical trust, like the power of radical trust in terms of rewiring your nervous system to essentially feel safe, feel worthy, feel supported to receive the life, the business, the outcomes that you desire. Because in the end, radical trust is what releases any kind of self-doubt, any kind of self-sabotage, and it is what dissolves any level of resistance. Trust is what makes the journey easeful, nourishing, and seamless. It's what makes everything flow. It's what restores both our internal and our external flow. So I'm excited to share that with you in a few days when I come back. And in the meantime, if you are ready to expand out of contraction, if you are ready to figure out how to meet all these contraction, all these knots, all these points of limitation and conditioning within you, and provide that missing experience, remember, like teach all these parts of you, help them remember who you are so that you can be the most peaceful and powerful force in your life, and so that you can receive from this place of overflow, then I would love to invite you to work with me and to go deeper in this work. We'll dive into a journey of quantum expansion. I'll help you embody this new identity. And it's not a new identity, it is who you are. So I'll help you remember and embody who you are so that you can feel and be and move from a really deeply regulated, relaxed, resource, resilience place and be rich in all the ways that matter, not just in your bank account, but in your body, in your heart, in your soul, in your relationships. So to find out more about what that would look like, check the description of this video. I give a couple options for us to go deeper. And just know that I would be so freaking excited to put all my years of experience, from working with hundreds and hundreds of people, as a psychotherapist, as a healer, as an expansion expert, as a strategist, to put all of that to work for you, to work for your own expansion, to work for your own growth. That would be a real honor for me. And it'd be really fun too, which, bonus, cherry on top. All right, I'll see you in a few days for Radical Trust.